Welcome, everyone. What a great day it is to be alive. We are discussing Exodus. Today is Sabbath, July 19th. The plagues. Read for yourself this week. Exodus 7, verse 8 to 10 and 29. Memory text says, "So the heart of Pharaoh was hard. Neither would he let the children of Israel go, as the Lord had spoken by Moses. A farmer was trying to get his donkey to move. The beast would not budge. So the farmer took a thick branch and walloped it. He again spoke to the donkey, who then started moving. When someone asked the farmer why that worked, he replied, 'Well, first you have to get its attention.' Putting aside whatever issue one might raise about cruelty to animals, there is a point to be made here, especially in the context of the exodus of the Hebrews from Egypt. Moses had been given his marching orders and goes to Pharaoh with God's famous words, Shalek et amai, which is, 'Let my people go.' Pharaoh, however, does not want to let God's people go. The scriptures never explicitly explain why Pharaoh was so reluctant, despite the military threat that the Egyptians feared the Hebrews could pose. Most likely, as is often the case with slavery, it was pure economics. They were cheap labor, and so he didn't want to lose whatever economic advantages these slaves gave him. Thus, he was going to need some persuasion not only to get his attention, but also to change his mind. Sunday, July 20th, God versus Gods. Read Exodus 7, 8 to 15. What lessons are here in this first confrontation between the God of the Hebrews and the God of Egypt? The upcoming battles were going to be between the living God and the Egyptian gods. What made things worse was that Pharaoh considered himself to be one of those gods. The Lord did not fight against the Egyptians or even Egypt per se, but against their deities. The Egyptians venerated more than 1,500 gods and goddesses. The biblical text is explicit. On all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. That's Exodus 12 and verse 12. Later, it is once again emphasized, this time when Israel's journey from Egypt was recounted. The Lord had brought judgment on their gods. Numbers 33 and verse 4. An example of this judgment on their gods was well demonstrated by the miracle of the rod turning into a serpent. In Egypt, the Urasis god, Wajet, was personified by a cobra and represented sovereign power over Lower Egypt. The symbol of a cobra appeared in Pharaoh's crown, a sign of his power, deity, royalty, and divine authority, because this goddess will spit venom at his enemies. The Egyptians also believed that the sacred serpent would guide the Pharaoh to his afterlife. When Aaron's staff became a snake and ate all the other serpents before the king, the supremacy of the living God over Egyptian magic and sorcery was manifested. The emblem of Pharaoh's might was not only conquered, but Aaron and Moses clutched it in their hands. The initial confrontation demonstrated God's power and lordship over Egypt. Moses, as God's representative, had greater authority and power than did the god Pharaoh himself. It is also significant that the ancient Egyptians considered a snake god, Neheb-Kau, he who harnesses the spirits, to be sacred, adored, and worshipped. According to their mythology, this serpent god had great power because he swallowed 7 cobras. Thus, God communicated to the Egyptians that he, not the serpent god, has sovereign power and authority. After such a powerful confrontation, they were able to understand this message immediately and distinctly. The question is, how can we allow the Lord to have sovereignty over any of the gods seeking supremacy in our lives? And as we move to Monday, July 21st, who hardened Pharaoh's heart? Remember to read Exodus 7, 3 to 13, 14, and 22. How do we understand these texts? 9 times in Exodus, the hardening of Pharaoh's heart is ascribed to God. Another nine times Pharaoh is said to have hardened his own heart. Who hardened the king's heart, God or Pharaoh himself? It is significant that in the Exodus story of the 10 plagues, in each of the first 5 plagues, Pharaoh alone was the agent of his heart hardening. Thus, he initiated the hardening of his own heart. From the 6th plague on, however, the biblical text states that it was God who hardened Pharaoh's heart. What all this means is that God strengthened or deepened Pharaoh's own choice, his willful action, as God has told Moses he would do. In other words, God sent plagues to help Pharaoh repent and to free him from the darkness and error of his mind. God did not create fresh evil in Pharaoh's heart. Instead, he simply gave Pharaoh over to his own malign impulses. He left him without God's restraining grace and thus abandoned him to his own wickedness. Pharaoh had his free will. He could choose for or against God, and he decided against. The lessons are obvious. We have been given the ability to choose between right and wrong, good and evil, obedience or disobedience. From Lucifer in heaven to Adam and Eve in Eden, to Pharaoh in Egypt and to us today, wherever we abide, we choose either life or death. An analogy. Imagine sunshine that beats on butter and clay. Butter melts, but clay hardens. The heat of the sun is the same in both cases, but there are 2 different reactions to the heat and 2 different results. The effect depends on the material. In the case of Pharaoh, one may say that it depends upon the attitudes of his heart towards God and his people. The question is, what free choice or choices are you going to make in the next day or so? If you know what the right choice is, how can you prepare yourself to make it? This is Pastor Patrick Graham from the Glenridge Seventh-day Adventist Church. Thank you for listening, and subscribe to get this every day. And today, God bless you real good.